So you're in the car business or you want to get into the car business and make a bunch of money. We've came to the right video because a lot of people have this question, which dealership is the best route to go to make the most money? And I've decided to make this video strictly because so many people have reached out to me, especially since I've been at a McLaren, Rolls-Royce, and a Koenigsegg dealer for the past couple of years. People always ask me the same thing. How'd you get to where you're at? How long have you been in the business? So in this video, I'm going to detail the 5 biggest differences between selling economy cars such as Honda, Toyota, Nissan, and Mazda versus exotic cars such as Lamborghini, McLaren, or even Rolls-Royce. So in this video, I've broken it down into 7 parts. First is going to be the introduction of who I am, how long I've been in the business, what dealerships I've been at, and every single title that I've achieved throughout my career. We're then going to dive into the 5 main differences between the economy and the exotic cars. The first being the experience that you have to start at one of these dealerships. Number 2 being the hours that you're going to work and put into to be successful at that dealership. 3 is the differences in the sales process that you're going to have to take selling economy cars versus exotic cars. 4 is the types of customers that you're going to get at those dealerships. And 5th, the biggest reason people get into the car business is pay. So the 5th point is going to be the pay structures between the both. And then finally, I'm going to conclude it all. But let's go ahead and jump into the video. All right, guys, for those of you guys who do not know who I am, my name is Tyler. I just turned 30 years old, and I've been in the car business for almost a decade now. I've been in sales, I've been a finance manager, and I've been a sales manager. I've done just about anything you can think of besides being a general manager, of course. But now I'm actually still in the business. I sell supercars and hypercars at a McLaren, Rolls-Royce, and a Koenigsegg dealer. So we are dealing with now the pinnacle of the market. But I really want to start this video off by showing you guys how I got to where I'm at. For those of you guys who do not know my story, I went to college in Virginia at Old Dominion University. I played college soccer there. I then jumped straight into the car business right after college. I have a biology degree. I was going to go the medical route, but I took a year off and I simply jumped into the car business because I wanted to start making money. I didn't know how much money you could actually make until I started getting paid, so it worked out very, very well. I started off my first year and a half in the business selling cars. I worked at a Honda dealership in Virginia Beach. We sold a bunch of cars there. We were a big volume dealer. We sold between 4 and 450 cars a month. This dealership now is selling 500 plus a month, so they're still doing very big numbers. But luckily enough, I was at a high volume dealer, which gave me a lot of practice very quickly. So there I was selling between 30 and 40 cars a month. I never actually hit 40. I did sell 38 and a half was my most. But for 30 cars plus every single month as an average, that's doing very, very well. But you can still do well even if you want to sell 20 cars a month. You can still make great money selling 20 or more a month. But after my year and a half selling cars, I luckily got a promotion into it being a finance manager, which is essentially, if you guys have ever bought a car, if you go to buy a car and you're going to do all your paperwork, the finance manager is the guy who signs up your bank docs. He's going to sign all your DMV documents. He's even going to try to sell you warranties and gap and all that extra stuff that you generally probably don't have to have. But that was me. But that was a pivotal moment in my career because then you really learn how money moves through a dealership and you learn the back end of the dealership, the finance and all the money. I did that for another year, year and a half. And then luckily enough, I got promoted up into a used car manager. Now, luckily at my dealership, yes, my title was a used car manager, but we also were able to do new car deals as well. So because we're at a high volume dealer, we sold a lot of cars. Luckily, I got to practice being a used car manager as well as a new car manager. So I got to desk deals. I would essentially close the customers if the salespeople couldn't do it. We essentially do everything else that you can think of. And obviously, sales managers kind of get a bad rep because they're the closers of the dealership. But overall, it was a phenomenal experience. I did that for about 4 years, and I got tons of practice and tons of reps, which is great. So that way you can expand your knowledge. And this is one thing I've always wanted to point out, guys. If you want to move up quickly in the dealership world, I always recommend starting at a high volume dealer. The higher the volume, the more reps you're going to get, just meaning that the more practice you're going to get, the more car deals you're going to get, thus expanding your knowledge so you can learn and grow quicker in the car business. And without being at a high volume dealer, I wouldn't even be anywhere close to where I'm at now because I wouldn't have the knowledge to get where I'm at. But after being in management for many, many years, I had an opportunity to move to a different state in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina, to transition to another Honda dealership here. And unfortunately for me, a couple of days into me actually moving and buying a house and relocating me and my family, I did get the news that that dealership, as soon as I moved, was sold to another company, which is okay. This happens all the time in the dealership world. So luckily enough, I got recommended to a dealership where I'm at now, selling McLaren, Rolls-Royce, and Koenigsegg. And luckily enough, having those new car franchises, it brings in a ton of good pre-owned inventory, such as anything you can think of, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Maserati, anything possible. So since I've been where I'm at now, and yes, I started TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, I get so many requests about how I got to where I'm at. So that's kind of a short story. But another question I always get is the differences between the both. And really the biggest question is how much money can you make? Is it better in the high-end market versus the economy market? So there's a lot of different questions and a lot of different things that we're going to go ahead and dive into and address. So the first thing is the experience that you need to get into these dealership groups. So on the economy side, if you're selling Hondas, Toyotas, Nissans, and Mazdas, you generally have to have no experience possible to start selling cars there. If you're going into management or something like that, generally you have to have management experience. But if you just want to go to a Honda dealership, sell 20, 30 cars a month and start making $10,000 a month, you can do that. You can jump into the dealership world and you can work open to close and grind it out. The difference in the exotic world is that generally it's going to require a little bit more experience. There's generally a lot more competitions to get sales jobs at these dealerships because everybody thinks that that's where they want to be. They think that that's where the money's at. They think that's the pinnacle of the market, which it is. So to get in the exotic world, such as a McLaren dealership or a Lamborghini dealership or a Porsche dealership, generally you're going to have some type of experience, maybe 2 to 3 years selling cars. You may not have to have any management experience, but the dealership I'm at now, we are sales executives, so we actually don't have sales managers. So they require us to have sales management experience because we essentially do everything. So it requires a higher tier of experience. The second thing I always get asked about, and I really want to differentiate, is the hours. Economy markets are generally going to stay open a lot longer than exotic dealers. When I was selling Hondas, we were open from 8:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. or when the last customer left. So if you're working a late night customer, he comes in at 8:30, he doesn't leave till 10, you're not leaving till 10 o'clock or when that customer leaves, which is okay. If you're young and you got to make money, it's a business that you can jump into and instantly start making money. So I was okay with it. And I actually enjoyed it because the more you work, the harder you work, the more money you made. But generally the hours that you're going to work is a lot more than the exotic world. These economy dealerships, if you really want to do well and sell 25, 30 cars a month, you're generally going to work 6 to 7 days a week because these dealerships are open Monday through Sunday. But the hours are generally going to be a lot more intensive on the economy side. The exotic dealership hours, again, such as McLaren or Lamborghini, my dealership right now is open from 10 to 8, Monday through Saturday. On the exotic side, it's a little bit different. It is a little bit more flexible. So the dealership I'm at, we work from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and we're closed on Sundays. However, a lot of the exotic dealers are only open from 10 to 7, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday is kind of like an easier day, just meaning that they may close at 3 or 4 o'clock. So the hours in the exotic side are a lot better per se. But here's one thing that'll throw you off too. Saturdays in the exotic world are actually one of the slowest days. In the economy side though, the dealership I was at, the Honda dealership, we were selling 30 to 40 cars every Saturday. So generally if you're selling Toyotas and Mazdas and Nissans, Saturdays are the craziest and busiest day possible. In the exotic world, if you're selling McLarens and Lamborghinis and Rolls Royces, it's generally one of the slower days. Saturdays for us generally is just customers walking in and taking photos and looking at the inventory. It's not really the buyers that are coming in. However, Saturdays on the economy side, there's people coming in through the dealership all day long. So you're going to be a lot more busier at that type of dealership. The third difference is the sales process. You as a salesperson at an economy dealership are generally going to be on a very strict process from your management staff. The typical process is someone comes in through the door, you want to get them seated, you want to do a needs analysis, figure out what car they're on, see if they have a trade. From there, show them the car, test drive the car, make sure they like it, and then try to sell the car. Or if someone's calling in, you try to get them into the dealership so then you can go through your steps just like that. And even though I just said that process is very simple, it's actually very difficult to grasp because each customer is different as a salesperson. You may grab a customer on the lot, they may not want to come inside, so you then have to jump through different hoops to kind of go through your process. But generally, it's pretty easy. And most of the customers that you're going to see are in person. Now, in the exotic world, this is where it's completely different. Believe it or not, most of our business in the exotic world is remote. I would say 90% of our customer base never come into the dealership. But I would say the typical process is people will actually call into the dealership. They know they want that specific car because of the spec, the color, the trim, whatever the case may be. They'll generally put down a deposit for that. We'll then do all the paperwork, mostly remote, or we'll send them docs to sign. And then from there, after he or she pays us the full amount of funds, we then schedule shipping to come pick up the vehicle and then ship the car to the customer wherever they're at, whether it's in California, Florida, anywhere domestic. We can't go international, of course. But I would say that's probably the biggest difference in the two is that in the economy side, you're going to see the customers in person a lot more frequently than in the exotic world. However, we do still get people who come in and buy cars that still does happen, so I'm not taking away from that. But the majority of it is remote. And before we continue, guys, my name's Tyler. I am currently been in the business now for almost a decade between sales, finance, and management. And if you need help actually negotiating your next car deal to get the absolute best deal possible, you can go to the link in our bio and actually go to our website to teach you how to do that. You can even hire me to negotiate your next car deal, saving you time, stress, and anxiety of the dealer, and also saving you a lot of money as a byproduct. And also, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and even comment on this video to help us push out our content. Thank you so much for watching. Let's continue on to the video. The fourth difference is the type of customers that you're going to deal with. The economy side is pretty standard. The type of customers you're going to see on the economy is pretty self-explanatory. You're going to see middle class, the higher class, sometimes even lower class. But you're going to have cars at your dealer that can range from 10 grand, maybe up to 50, 60 grand. So you're getting the average consumers buying those cars. It may be teachers. There may be some lawyers in there. It's just everyday people who are buying those type of cars. Nothing too crazy. And sometimes alone, you will get some higher end net worth people who are buying these cars, just depending upon where you're at. Like if you're at a Toyota dealer and you're selling like 4Runners, for an example, everyone likes a 4Runner, so you may get a different mix of customers. But if you're selling like Hondas, Nissans, Mazdas, these are people who live on a budget, who maybe make 5 to 8 grand a month on average, that you're not going to see crazy high-end net worth individuals. The exotic side, this is where it kind of gets pretty cool, is the customer base. I'd say the average car on my dealership's lot is probably between 200 and 300 grand, sometimes more. I mean, we have cars that are over $3 million. So yes, we have hypercars, which is a completely different level. We're not going to get too much into that into this video. But the average customer that we see are business owners. It may be top tier lawyers. It may even be doctors. We see a lot of real estate people as well. And yes, of course, we do get the top tier clients, which are celebrities and athletes and things like that. We see that quite often as well. But I would say majority of the people who are buying our cars make between 500 to a million a year. Some less, some more. This is kind of the average, I'd say, that I see. And this is also cool as well because I've always been the guy who wants to network. I want to do better in everything that I'm doing. So every time I sell a car to someone who's making a lot more than me, I always try to pick their brain. What are you doing for work? How did you get there? What's some successes that you have? Is there anything you could tell me to help me grow as a person and in my career? And luckily enough, I get some great feedback. I can't share all that because that's so much information that would take probably another 10 videos. But it's very cool to kind of network with people and rub elbows with people like that because it's only going to help you down the line. So I would say that's probably the coolest part of the job, is that the networking side and the people that you get to meet. And the fifth biggest difference, and every single person has asked me this, from my previous friends that I used to work with in the car dealership world to people on TikTok and YouTube, they always ask, can you make more selling exotic cars than Hondas or Toyotas? And I think it really comes down to you. In the car business, you're always going to have very, very good months. You're going to have bad months. You're going to have average months. So I would say when everything is firing on all cylinders, you're going to make more in the exotic world. However, I've done very, very well in the economy side as well. Again, I sold Hondas. The most cars I've ever sold was 38 and a half, and I made 19 grand that month. It was actually 19.1. I still remember because it wasn't 20, which was my goal, but $19,000 in a month is phenomenal. And I've had similar checks to that in the exotic world as well. But the pay structure is a little bit different as well because obviously at these exotic dealerships, you're not going to sell 30, 40, 50 cars a month. You can. It's going to be very, very rare if you do. But if you're selling Hondas and Toyotas at a very high-end volume dealer like the one that I was at, you may see people selling 50, 60, 70, 100 cars a month. I, luckily enough, my first year selling cars, I sold enough cars to go to a Honda event, meeting the top Honda salesman in the country. And there was guys that were selling 150 cars a month. I don't know how they did it, but these guys who were selling that many cars, they may make 100 grand a month. It's ridiculous. But also pay structures on the economy side, it's generally tied into a gross pay plan and volume. You're generally going to get a commission of the total gross per car deal that you sell. So let's say you make 3 grand of profit on one car that you sell, you may get 20% of that. And then it's also tied into volume. So it's very, very simple. The more cars you sell, the more you're going to make. Also, the more cars you sell, you're going to hit higher tiers, just meaning you may get more commission per car deal if you reach 15 cars. Or if you reach 20 cars, you may get more commission. But it's generally tied to gross and volume. On the exotic side, it's actually pretty similar. It's not really tied as much to volume. Obviously, the more cars you sell, the more you're going to make. So that's kind of common sense. But the owners of the dealership at this caliber, they understand that we're not going to sell 30, 40, 50 cars a month every single month. It doesn't happen. On average, I do about 12 to 15, which is very, very good in the exotic world. But coming into the exotic world thinking you're going to sell 50 cars in a month just because you came from a Honda dealership where you were selling 50, it's probably not going to happen just because of supply. The supply of these cars is a lot lower than like a Honda CRV. Honda CRVs, there may be 100,000 sold every 2 months. But if you look at new McLarens, for an example, and we're a McLaren dealership, we only may sell 60 or 70 a year. So the volume is a lot lower than compared to that of Honda or Toyota or Nissan. So they don't really base it on that. But in the exotic world, I've seen it tied a lot more to commission. But also some dealerships may go to a flat. So if you don't get commission on the car, you may get a flat $1,000 per car you sell, or a flat $1,500 for each car that you sell. So you sell 10 cars, you may make 10 grand. As opposed to if you sell 30 cars at a Honda dealership, you may make the same 10 grand. So it really just depends. But I would say overall, in terms of pay, it really comes down to you as a person. The way to maximize any pay plan, I don't care what dealership you go to, if you invest in yourself and you understand exactly what you're selling, you know the product inside and out, you have a great attitude, and you work harder than anyone else, whatever dealership you decide to be at, you're going to make very, very good money and you're going to be successful. It really comes down to how bad you want it and how much time you're willing to put in to really master your craft. But guys, I would say that's probably the 5 biggest differences. And I've wanted to make this video for the past year because so many people ask me the differences because I've been very, very successful at both tiers. But just to recap, the first biggest difference is the experience that you have to have. The second reason is just the hour difference. You're probably going to work more if you're working at an economy dealership such as Toyota, Nissan, and Mazda, as opposed to an exotic dealership. But working less isn't always better, especially if you want to make a lot of money. Third is the differences in sales process. Even though you're only selling cars, it is a very big sales process difference between economy and exotics. 4 is the different types of customers that you're going to see, which I think is the coolest part of the exotic world. And then 5th is the pay structure. But guys, that's the biggest differences between the economy and the exotic dealership worlds. Again, I've been in both sides and I understand both very, very well, and I've been successful at both. But thanks for watching. If you have not already, please like, subscribe, and even comment on this video and let me know what you think. Let me know what other additional content you would like to see coming from the dealership world, and we'd love to make that for you. But guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the very next video.